By now, it's obvious to everyone. Media bias is real. Broadcast networks, major newspapers, mainstream websites, even outlets distributing content are typically 90 to 95% negative of President Trump, his administration, his policies, and his agenda. And some sites, not little tiny ones, but major providers, are only sharing liberal and left-leaning stories, like Apple News. If you have an iPhone, you know when you open it, you'll see links to stories on the Apple News site. It's really easy to click on, and it's a very direct way to deliver information to millions of iPhone users. I'll be honest, I read stuff on Apple News all the time, and I never realized just how biased and one-sided it was. I'd see something and say, oh, that looks interesting, tap the link, read it, and move on, because that's what we all do, right? And this is how sneaky Apple and so many other liberal companies are. They make it look unassuming and legitimate, middle of the road, while they filter what you see and read, eliminating most conservative networks and outlets as contributors, and keep Republican viewpoints and stories flattering to the president or his administration hidden from view. A recent review by the conservative watchdog Media Research Center found less than 2% of the top stories on Apple News last month came from right-leaning news outlets, which was an increase from 0% a month earlier, with Apple apparently trying to do something but as little as possible to answer critics and avoid a possible federal crackdown on media bias. Think about this for a moment. In the month of January, Apple News did not feature one single story from a conservative news outlet, not a single item that might be perceived as supporting the president and his work for the American people, prompting the FTC chairman to send a letter to Apple owner Tim Cook, warning his so-called news service could be violating federal consumer protection laws against unfair or deceptive acts or practices. So the February numbers, after the letter was delivered, out of 560 stories posted by Apple News and analyzed by MRC, 8 of them, 8 out of 560 were written by conservative outlets. That's 1.4%. Their pathetic and incredibly unfair and unbalanced approach has been mirrored by mainstream broadcast outlets and newspapers for years now, increasingly frustrating the Trump administration, which is putting some pressure on media companies to be more responsible. Last weekend, the president blasted left-wing media outlets for promoting pro-Iran storylines, accusing what he called fake news outlets of being corrupt and highly unpatriotic. And soon after, the FCC chairman, Brendan Carr, posted on X, broadcasters that are running hoaxes and news distortions, also known as the fake news, have a chance now to correct course before their license renewals come up. The law is clear. Broadcasters must operate in the public interest, and they will lose their licenses if they do not. This sent the liberal press and pretty much every Democrat into a frenzy. How dare the administration threaten journalists and their freedom to write and report as they see fit? As a journalist, I'm also very protective of the First Amendment and freedom of the press, but we do have a responsibility to be accurate and factual and to avoid bias when covering the news. And again, to be clear, I'm not talking about an editorial page or a monologue like this one that's sharing news and opinion openly and honestly. We're talking about major news organizations hiding their bias, pretending to be impartial while doing the exact opposite, systematically suppressing conservative viewpoints while unfairly painting anything and everything the president does with a negative brush. That's not only a disservice to at least half the nation, it's dishonest and a violation of the very principles this profession is built on. I'm surprised they're still doing it, especially after the last election, when it became clear the majority of Americans don't like and don't support much of the liberal agenda. But when the majority of the press is controlled by liberals, the result is predictable and unfortunate. But hey, you found Newsmax too, and the Leventhal Report, so sit back, relax, and enjoy this hour of real news for real people.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.